Hey guys, it's Christian. For this video, I just wanted to kind of go through the future of what Disney Star Wars needs. Because I know over the past couple of years, the movies and TV shows that we've gotten just haven't really been the best. Some have been good, but just some of them kind of eh. So I just wanted to have this video kind of explain my thoughts of what I think the future of Star Wars needs and ways that can make everything kind of more consistent in quality. So without further ado, let's get started. So first up, we have the Bad Batch Season 2, and yeah, I'm actually pretty excited about this one. As far as like the first season, I wasn't like the hugest fan of it, but I thought there were some episodes that were actually really entertaining. And I'm actually really excited about this next season, just based on the trailers and everything that we've gotten. Just really looks like, Omega and the Bad Batch are kind of gonna get really into the fight, and they're gonna kind of explore different worlds and different planets, and there's gonna be like a lot of cool action. It just looks like from the trailers we're gonna get more like tie-ins to the overall empire, what their schemes are, what their plans are. I'm hoping that we kind of get like that rousing conclusion to the Bad Batch's storyline, because I have no idea if they're gonna do like a season 3 or anything. If you see my last video where I kind of give my thoughts on season 2, like I was kind of hoping that it would be kind of more like a Saving Private Ryan type story, where the Bad Batch are teamed up with Omega, and they're kind of journeying from place to place, on the run, doing all these different missions, and then maybe like as the story goes on, they kind of get sacrificed and they have to take Omega to this kind of safe haven at the end. So I'm hoping they kind of do that with this one. It just seems like they're really gonna bump into different characters. The stakes are gonna be raised a little bit more. We're gonna see the Emperor and like Mas Amedda and Commander Cody. And the moment that we just kind of get more like conflict and just more, like battles and, just personal things going on. But yeah, I think this could be like a really good opportunity for the Bad Batch and Omega to really kind of grow as characters in a way. Just because in the first season, Omega was kind of like at odds with the characters a little bit more. And like it was really kind of just them kind of becoming this family, so to speak, since they're all clones. They're all technically related. So it's kind of cool seeing them kind of come together as a unit. So yeah, I'm hoping like with this one, we kind of delve more deeply into their characters. If they end up sacrificing the Bad Batch characters, maybe we can get kind of like that emotional connection that we were establishing from season 1, and then what it looks like they're going to be doing in season 2. But yeah, as far as the characters, it just looks like they're really going to be put to the test. Omega has her laser bow and arrow thing going on, so that looks pretty cool. Bad Batch looks like they have like different armor, different weapons. They're battling those giant crab creatures on that beach planet, so it really looks like they're gonna jump into the fight, and it's gonna be like pretty epic and amazing. So yeah, I'm really hoping that we get that with season 2, and I'm hoping that we kind of see more of like the consequences of how the Empire is affecting the galaxy overall. Like I said before, we're gonna see more of the Emperor and like Mas Amedda and Cody. So I'm hoping that we kind of see that transition, because we kind of got a little bit of it in season 1, where it was like that first episode where we see that kind of recreation of the scene in Revenge of the Sith, where the Emperor is giving that speech. The Republic would be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society. So it'd be cool to see more of the effects on that, and like I'm hoping that we get to see more Tarkin in there and kind of have that more of that smooth transition between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. Kind of get more like Rebels tie-ins here and there. Oh yeah, and those other characters, we're going to see a little Gunji, the Wookiee Padawan with his green lightsaber. I saw that in the trailer. So that'd be cool to kind of see some more Jedi tie-ins, kind of see more of like the purge of the Jedi, because we didn't really get that in Rebels, because that was kind of like more towards A New Hope era. I was hoping that we'd kind of see more of it in Obi-Wan, but we didn't really get to see that. So maybe he's like one of the younglings who got away. Like I don't know if he'll be sacrificed in this show. It might be a little too dark for for the kids and everything, but I'm hoping that we see characters on the run. Obviously we got that in season 1, so I'm hoping that we get more of that in season 2, just characters on the run, and then realizing we can't be on the run anymore. We really have to join to the fight, help start up this rebellion, and then kind of transition to like the Rebels' time a little bit. Kind of like what we got with Andor, where like Andor was like on the run for most of the series, and then by the end of it, he's fully into the fight. So I'm hoping that we kind of get more of that, because I know we're getting Cody in this one, and I was researching that he's kind of more on the Empire's side. I'm hoping that when we see the Bad Batch kind of interact with him, maybe he'll be kind of like a crosshair character where he's fully for the Empire. Good soldiers always follow orders, and then he kind of has that transition where it's like I'm seeing the cracks of the Empire, and I really have to join to the fight with the rebellion, because we haven't seen him in like Rebels, so maybe he'll sacrifice himself for the Bad Batch. Maybe he'll fight alongside with the Bad Batch, and then he'll be sacrificed along with them. And then we don't know what happens to Omega. Maybe she'll pop up in another like live action show, maybe like Ahsoka or something, which I'll get to a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, she's like this unaltered clone of Jango Fett, so obviously she has some importance to her. So I'm hoping that they kind of explore more of that of her character. Overall, I'm excited for season 2 of the Bad Batch. Like I said before, like I wasn't like the biggest fan of season 1. I liked it, but I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for season 2, just because I thought it was gonna kind of be like a one and done series, kind of be like the transition from Revenge of the Sith to Rebels, where the clones are phased out, and then we kind of see more of the stormtroopers raised up, which we did get a little bit in season 1, but I thought it was gonna be kind of more about that. But obviously, Dave Filoni is in charge of everything, so he has an overall plan, whether that be this continues into season 3, or if everything kind of just wraps up here in season 2 and kind of transitions smoothly into Rebels, then we'll see. Because I know we're getting like 12 episodes for this, so he has plenty of time to tell like a really good story and wrap up storylines and everything. But yeah, overall, I'm really excited. I enjoyed the trailer, and January 4th can't come soon enough, so we'll see what happens with that one. All right, now we move on to The Mandalorian season 3 and 4. I'll just jump into season 4 just because we obviously don't really know much about it, but I know I did some research, and apparently Jon Favreau has been writing season 4, and the actor who plays Moff Gideon, Giancarlo Esposito, has been saying that there's going to be a season 4, and that's going to really give you answers and everything. So I'm excited for that. Like obviously I don't really know what the story's going to be because we haven't seen season 3, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of address that really quickly before I go into my thoughts for season 3. But as for season 3, I'm hoping that we kind of get more like the relationship between Mando and Grogu. At the end of Book of Boba Fett, they kind of just fly off into the sunset, the twin sunsets, but obviously they're going to kind of get wrapped up more into the fight with everything, with like Bo-Katan and Mandalore, and consequences of like removing his helmet at the end of season 2, and then finding out from the armorer. So it looks like, at least from the start of it, it's going to kind of be Mando and Grogu on the run, and then slowly but surely they're kind of drawn back into the fight, because Mando's been kind of brainwashed by this whole Mandalorian culture from like the armorer and the other Mandalorians. So I'm hoping that this is kind of his like redemption arc, where he's not really influenced by the armor or anything, but he's really kind of making his own decisions and his own choices. Yeah, I'm excited to see Bo-Katan and their kind of the different Mandalorian factions and the different kind of belief systems that they have. And I'm hoping to see more of like the Mandalorian culture, because we're obviously going to be going to Mandalore and seeing how everything was destroyed in like the Night of 1,000 Tears, how Death Watch was raised up and everything. I'm excited to see the conflict that Mando and Bo-Katan have, for the throne, so to speak. Maybe this can be kind of like a Game of Thrones in the Star Wars universe, the whole conflict with like the Darksaber and who's going to rule Mandalore, because technically Mando has the Darksaber, and he was trying to give it back to Bo-Katan, but since Bo-Katan didn't like win it in combat, she's not the true ruler of Mandalore. So I'm hoping that we kind of get like a battle between the two of them, like an honorable battle or something, or maybe it'll be Mando joining up with Bo-Katan, and they're kind of going after the Armorer's faction, and then everything kind of gets settled out at the very end, where Mando's fully broken himself away from his previous faction, and now he's kind of joining in with Bo-Katan out with her faction, and they're kind of like becoming the true versions of what Mandalorian should be. And that can kind of lead into season 4, whatever the storyline may be. Maybe there's like a bigger war going on between like the true Mandalorians and between like the Death Watch kind of cult society of the Mandalorian. It also looks like we're gonna have our old characters, like Grief Karga, Moff Gideon, Dr. Pershing, Pelimoto, all these different characters that we kind of left off in season 2. We kind of briefly saw it in like Book of Boba Fett with some of them, but it'd be good to kind of wrap up their storylines as well. It looks like Grief Karga is like the head of Navarro, and like Navarro is more of like a peaceful planet now. You see those salacious crumb creatures, in the trees and everything. They're all peaceful. So it looks like he's going to be joined to the fight. It looks like Dr. Pershing, I've kind of heard theories like he might be joining the rebellion. So maybe, switching sides and, kind of be like the inside man for the rebellion and to kind of take down the Empire. Like Moff Gideon was obviously captured by the characters. So he's probably still stewing and probably in his jail cell. And maybe there'll be like this great breakout. I know there's like the scene of like the Mandalorians in the trailer kind of like dropping down and like flying around. I think that was Navarro that they were flying on top of a. Yeah, I could be wrong, but maybe in the chaos, Moff Gideon will break out and then he'll kind of rejoin the Empire, and then in season 4 there'll be kind of like more of like a war going on and everything. But yeah, overall I'm really excited for this season. I mean, I loved the first 2 seasons. I think I loved season 1 a little bit more than season 2. I kind of gave my thoughts in my previous video. But yeah, overall, like, both seasons were great. I love their little cameos in Book of Boba Fett. I'm excited to see how this whole conflict kind of gets resolved or not resolved in season 3, and then obviously how it goes in season 4, since we got confirmation for that. But yeah, we'll see. It's Dave and John, so they haven't steered us wrong yet. So I'm excited to see what happens, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. All right, now we move on to Vision season 2. And for this one, there's not really too much information out there. So far, I just know that Lucasfilm is going to reach out to more countries like around the world, like India and the United Kingdom and Ireland and Chile. So it'd be really cool to see different animation styles besides the kind of Japanese animation that they did with Volume 1. I've heard rumors that maybe there might be like an official Star Wars anime show just based on the success of Volume 1 of Visions, that maybe we'll get an entire season of like one of these different shorts that we saw of like The Duel or like The Ninth Jedi. I know I explained this a little bit in my previous video, but I haven't seen all of Star Wars Visions. I haven't seen every single episode, but the ones I have seen, like, I really enjoyed, like the ones that I mentioned before. So it'd be really cool if we kind of got an entire season of that just based on the success of Volume 1. But yeah, as far as season 2 of Visions, I'm excited for it. Like I said before, there's not really a ton of information about it, but I'm still excited to see it, and I'm excited to see different animation styles, and we'll see how it goes. All right, then we move on to Young Jedi Adventures, and this is another show that there's not a ton of information out there for. Apparently it's going to be more for like a preschool, elementary age audience, so I'm probably not going to be like first in line to see it or anything. Maybe when my son is born, like, we'll watch it together. But as for now, it's not like super on my radar and everything. But apparently it's going to be about a group of like younglings during like the High Republic era, and it's going to be like they're going to be learning about friendship and compassion and caring and everything. So yeah, I think it could be a good show for like little kids. Maybe it'll explain more of like the High Republic era, just because I know that that's kind of where Disney Star Wars is kind of putting their focus on now, is like this High Republic era, set like 1,000 years before a Phantom Menace, which I think can be really cool. And then we'll kind of get to it later with a couple other shows, but I know a lot of other shows kind of tie into the High Republic, so maybe there'll be like little Easter eggs here and there to talk about that, but yeah, probably very, very, very subtle ones. But yeah, I think it could be a really good show, for little kids. Like I said before, you can teach kids about the different lessons that these younglings are being taught about. Maybe there'll be some tie-ins to like the overall Star Wars galaxy, whether they be like, little hints here and there, or just stuff that'll help the kids, kind of learn more about the Star Wars lore, just so that when they get older and they kind of watch the other shows and movies, they'll kind of have more of like a background of like what they need to know and everything. So yeah, I think it can be good. But like I said before, like with Visions, there's not really a ton of information out there for it, so there's not really much I can draw on. But yeah, I'm hoping that that's kind of what they're kind of leading towards moving forward. All right, now we move on to Ahsoka, and this one's probably like my most anticipated show, just because I love the character of Ahsoka ever since Clone Wars. From the movie, she wasn't like my favorite character at first. I think a lot of people kind of agreed. But then as the show went on, she matured, and she became really like a fan favorite. And then I'm glad that by the end of like the Clone Wars season, they kind of wrapped up her storyline. I said this before in like my other video, but when Disney bought Lucasfilm, they canceled Clone Wars because it was on Cartoon Network, which belonged to Warner Brothers, and they put it on Netflix for a little bit to kind of give like the lost episodes. But I'm glad that once Disney bought Lucasfilm, they brought Dave Filoni back on board, and they allowed him to finish off the season and kind of wrap up Ahsoka's storyline, in the best way possible. Because like literally that whole season 7 story arc, I said it before in like my last video, but yeah, like that whole like last 4 episodes were incredible, and really kind of set the stage for like Ahsoka's character later on. Then obviously we get her more in like Rebels, which she was great in that, when she came up in season 2, where it was revealed that she was Fulcrum the whole time. And then she kind of weaves in and out of that show, and then by the end you kind of get that little tease of her and Sabine teaming up to actually find Ezra and find Thrawn, just because they launched into hyperspace into parts unknown of the galaxy at the end of that, and now it's kind of the whole search for him. And then when she popped up in season 2 of Mandalorian, and then kind of talk to the bow staff woman, and she's like, "Where is Thrawn?" And I remember when I watched that episode, and I was like, "Oh shoot!" I was already like mind blown just seeing her in live action. Because Rosario Dawson is like an incredible actress. And at first I thought it was going to be Ashley Eckstein who was going to be live action Ahsoka, but it was Rosario Dawson, which was totally fine. So it's cool to see her in that. Just interacting with Mando and talking about Grogu. And talking about like connections with like Luke Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker, obviously, with that. So yeah, I'm really excited to see that. But yeah, I'm excited with the show that they're going to kind of continue the storyline that they left off with the search for Thrawn and the search for Ezra. One, we got confirmation that Ezra's going to be in the show, so it's going to be cool to see him in live action, and like the picture of the actor who's playing Ezra, looks just like him. So I know the actor who played Aladdin in the live action version of Aladdin was kind of fan casted to do it, but I'm glad that they got this new actor to do it because he looks just like Ezra. And when I saw them, I'm like, oh shoot, like that's like literally perfect casting. So I'm excited to see that. We don't have confirmation of who's going to play Thrawn just yet. We know that like Ray Stevenson is going to be playing an admiral, and he was a voice in one of the animated shows as well. I thought he was going to be Admiral Thrawn in this one, but yeah, I guess not. So we'll see who gets the lucky role of being Admiral Thrawn. Maybe it would be like Benedict Cumberbatch or something. That would be awesome if we saw that. Or the voice actor who played Admiral Thrawn in the animated version. I mean, it'd be cool to see him in live action. But for now, yeah, I'm glad that we're getting it. Yeah, one of the things I'm really excited to see is possible flashbacks with Anakin Skywalker. Either flashbacks of Anakin Skywalker or Force Ghost Anakin Skywalker, just because now we know that Hayden Christensen is confirmed to be in Ahsoka, which makes total sense. So it really just depends on like how he's going to portray Anakin Skywalker in this show. Like if it is flashbacks, I think that would be really incredible, just because I talked about this in Obi-Wan, but that whole flashback to young Obi-Wan and young Anakin from the Attack the Clones era of Star Wars was like really amazing. And like I said this before, but I thought they were going to have like a whole episode dedicated to like a flashback of seeing young Obi-Wan and young Anakin. So yeah, it'd be really cool to see flashbacks of young Anakin with young Ahsoka. Maybe they're training, maybe we see Ahsoka, kind of seeing hints of Anakin, leaning towards the dark side. So we'll see what happens with that. But if it's a Force Ghost, I think that would be cool too. The rumors back in the day in like the Last Jedi era when that film was being in production, that like, oh shoot, did Rian Johnson secretly hire Hayden Christensen to make a cameo as a Force Ghost? And going back to like Force Awakens, where it's like, well, the question was like, why didn't Force Ghost Anakin show up to Kylo and say like I'm a Force Ghost, I was redeemed at the end of Return of the Jedi, like you don't have to follow my footsteps of when I was Darth Vader. I guess either Kylo wasn't powerful enough to communicate with Force Ghosts, or like maybe the Emperor clone was so powerful that he can cut off connections between Jedi and Force Ghosts and everything. So that was kind of a bummer to see that. And then with Rise of Skywalker, we were supposed to get a bunch of Force Ghosts coming back at the end, but I guess because in China, like they're kind of weary about seeing ghosts in movies, so they kind of cut all that out, and they just kind of had like the voiceovers of all the ghosts, and we got a little bit of a voiceover from Hayden Christensen. But it would have been cool to see a bunch of Force Ghosts backing up Rey and taking on the Emperor clone and everything, because apparently Force Ghosts can grab onto objects. So as we saw with Rey throwing a lightsaber and Luke Skywalker catching it, and it's like, a Jedi's weapon deserves more respect. So yeah, that would have kind of been a missed opportunity. But anyway, yeah, back to Ahsoka. So yeah, I'm excited to see Hayden Christensen, whatever iteration Dave Filoni decides that he should be in. I think he might lean towards flashbacks, just because he obviously created Clone Wars, so it'd be cool to see more flashbacks with young Anakin and young Ahsoka. But I mean, if it is a Force Ghost, then I think that could still be really cool as well. Yeah, I'm also excited to see kind of like the relationship that forms between Ahsoka and Sabine. Yeah, just because the casting for Sabine, like she looks incredible. She looks just like the animated version of Sabine, and kind of see how their relationship forms. And like apparently, the footage hasn't been released, but I know like there's footage shown at, I think either Star Wars Celebration or D23 that shows like the back of Hera's head. And then on the panel for Star Wars Celebration, Chopper kind of rolled out on stage. So obviously we're getting Hera, Syndulla, and Chopper, which would be really cool. And then that'd be also really cool if we got Zeb, maybe get like a live action version of Zeb. I don't think if anything's been confirmed, but Dave Filoni obviously loves his characters from Rebels, so if he wants to kind of bring them in, I think that'd be cool. And then seeing a little Jason, Hera Syndulla, and Kanan's son, I think that'd be amazing as well. Yeah, it kind of just kind of brings that kind of Rebels love that, you know, me and like the rest of the fandom had, because that ending for Rebels, I said this in my last video, was just incredible. And, you know, it ended the series perfectly, but still kind of had those little, you know, loose ends that need to be tied up. And when that first happened, I was like, oh yeah, you know, that'd be, you know, cool, you know, fan fiction or something, or maybe they'll have a novel or a comic book. But the fact that they're gonna continue this storyline, you know, in live action with official Ahsoka show with Dave Filoni at the helm, you know, it's, yeah, I'm really excited for it. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, it hasn't been confirmed when we're going to be getting the show. You know, it just says early 2023. So I'm guessing it might be, you know, May the 4th when it comes out, because, you know, that makes sense. That's when the Bad Batch season premiere came out. That's when the Clone Wars season finale came out. So it makes sense if it comes out that day. I mean, if not, then yeah, no worries. But I think that's kind of where they're going to kind of gear it towards. So we'll see what happens if they do that. But yeah, overall, I'm really excited for this show. You know, it's definitely one of my most anticipated shows. And, you know, with Dave Filoni at the helm, you know, I feel like he's really going to put lots of care into the show. You know, he's going to treat the characters right. He's going to kind of give them all satisfying conclusions. And I think they said it's supposed to be just like a limited series. So I'm not sure how many episodes there are. I think there might be like eight episodes or something. So it's really just going to kind of be like a one and done, kind of wrap up these storylines that they kind of left us with at the end of Rebels. I'll probably get to this a little bit later, but apparently it's going to be kind of like a crossover event between like Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and Skeleton Crew. I think Kathleen Kennedy's trying to do like play the Marvel game of having this kind of like, you know, different storylines kind of come together, kind of like Kevin Feige did with Marvel, have this Avengers crossover film. You know, I'm excited to see what'll happen. And, you know, with, like I said before, with Dave Filoni at the helm, and then Jon Favreau helming Mando season 3, and then John Watson, Christopher Ford helming Skeleton Crew, which I'll get to later on. You know, I think this could be really, really cool, and, you know, there can be a little bit more connection between the Star Wars movies, a little bit more continuity, just a little bit more consistency and quality. And, you know, it seems like, you know, they finally have a plan, because like what I was saying with my last video of the sequel trilogy of like not really having a plan. J.J. Abrams just kind of went with Force Awakens, and then Rian Johnson took that and, you know, just struck down our fan theories and everything, kind of went with his own idea, and then J.J. Abrams kind of had to come in and try to wrap things up the best he could, but obviously they didn't have a plan. And, you know, I know there's an article out there of like Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger kind of confessing that they messed up with the sequel trilogy, and that they're hoping to actually have a plan moving forward to kind of more tie-in and connection, more continuity, which, yeah, would have been good with the sequel trilogy, but oh well. But yeah, I'm just glad like moving forward they're gonna finally have a plan. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, overall, like, I'm excited for Ahsoka, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. All right, now we move on to Andor season 2. And if you've watched my previous videos, I did explain that I really enjoyed season 1. You know, obviously there was like episodes that were kind of slow, some episodes that, you know, there wasn't really much happening in it. So I'm hoping that with season 2 they kind of pick up the pace, and it looks like they will. I was reading that originally they had a plan for like 5 seasons, and then by the Tony Gilroy was saying that it's impossible. It's like the production's like impossible to do, just because, you know, just based on season 1, like they go on location, they have all these amazing sets and production value and everything. So sustaining that for 4 more seasons was kind of impossible. So they're kind of cramming 4 seasons, or I guess 4 years worth of material into 1, which I think is pretty cool. I know some people who, you know, like the slower pace of season 1 will probably be a little jarring for them, but at least for us, you know, me and like other hardcore Star Wars fans, kind of want to see more, like, you know, pick up the pace a little bit more like Star Wars lore tie-ins a little bit, will be really cool. So I'm hoping that they do that with season 2, and kind of just get us to the events of Rogue One, and kind of see Andor's arc of, you know, kind of being this guy who like runs away from the fight to kind of like finally join the fight. And then in Rogue One, where he like obviously gives his life for the rebellion to give the plans for the Death Star. Yeah, and something that I'm really excited to see is Cassian Andor finally, you know, crossing paths with Mon Mothma, just because in the first season, you know, they're very separated and everything. You know, a lot of characters were very separate, a lot of storylines going on. So it'd be kind of cool to see those characters finally, you know, meet up with each other, just because they in Rogue One they were in, you know, obviously they were on Yavin 4, so it'd be cool to finally see them cross paths, see how, you know, they finally interact. You know, it's kind of like Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen, you know, finally meeting at the end of like Game of Thrones season 6, where it's like finally we see the Song of Ice and Fire, you know, come together and everything. So I'm hoping that we kind of see that with Cassian Andor and with Mon Mothma, just because they're such important characters, especially in Rogue One, and then obviously for Mon Mothma in Return of the Jedi. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that, and kind of see like what their interaction's going to be. how they're going to deal with each other, how they're going to finally kind of like gel together and work together to, make these plans to, steal the plans for the Death Star and move forward with like the rebellion, and how the rebellion's going to finally form, and finally begin an alliance to take on the Empire. So I hope we kind of get to see more of that. Yeah, I'm really excited for season 2. Like I said before, I'm glad that they're not kind of stretch it along for another 4 seasons, but really kind of compress it all into like one season. And I don't mind the fact that it'll be another 12 episodes. I'm hoping that each episode will actually be, packed with story. Hopefully we'll actually get like hour-long episodes. We'll get like that breakneck speed and pace for these episodes, and that we'll finally have that, kind of epic conclusion that'll lead on to Rogue One, and then obviously we'll lead on to A New Hope. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I'm really excited. Like I said before, I enjoyed season 1. I just wish it was kind of more compressed, more eventful. And it looks like they'll be doing that with season 2 moving forward. It's going to be a little while away. I think it's going to be like 2024 when we get it. So, obviously it's like a huge production, and with a lot of production value, and they're cramming a lot into one season. So it'll be a while. So there'll be plenty of time for more speculation and everything. But yeah, we'll see. And I'm excited to see what happens of Cassian Andor, how we kind of see his arc throughout the season. So yeah, I'm excited. All right, and now we move on to Skeleton Crew. And for this one, I'm pretty excited for as well. Like when I first heard about it, I didn't really know too much about it. At first, I thought it was going to be kind of like this like disparate band of rebels kind of going from, place to place to place, on these different missions and stuff. But actually going into it, like apparently it's going to be more of like 4 11 to 12-year-olds who are kind of lost in space. And either they're on the run from this kind of older character, like 30 to 40-year-old character, which Jude Law will play, or like he'll meet up with them, and they'll kind of go on this adventure together and everything. Which I thought was pretty cool. I was doing research into it, and now John Watts and Christopher Ford are going to be at the helm of it. And they said that they talked to Kathleen Kennedy that they kind of wanted to be like kind of like an 80s Amblin coming of age adventure story, kind of like the Goonies in space, which I thought was like really cool. Kind of like a different spin on Star Wars, where it's like it's all about the wars and everything. Like I said before, like this is kind of like too early to tell like what the story is going to be. But yeah, apparently the fake production title was like based on like an episode of The Simpsons, where like Bart Simpson and his friends are kind of on this road trip. They have like these fake IDs, and like they kind of go on this road trip, and things go wrong. So I can totally see that happening with this show, because John Watts, like one of his movies, I haven't seen it, but it's called Cop Car. It's about these 2 teenagers who steal a cop car, and then Kevin Bacon, who's the cop, is like after them and everything. So it can kind of be like in that vein. So I'm not really sure how much it'll tie in, because apparently this is supposed to tie in with Mandalorian and Ahsoka. But I guess we'll see, who Jude Law's character is going to be, just because that's been kind of kept under wraps. And then the teenage characters haven't been casted yet. So we'll see what happens with that. But since it takes place, in that kind of Mandalorian Ahsoka time, I'm hoping that we kind of get more of like the post Return of the Jedi kind of reconstruction era, as we kind of saw with the Mandalorian. Like now, with the Empire gone, and like the rebellion kind of trying to reform the galaxy, this is kind of like the reconstruction era of Star Wars. So it's kind of like the Wild West, where there's no really kind of main government over the galaxy. So obviously like Mando is like the gunslinger character, kind of going into the bars and shooting people up and getting his bounty and stuff. So when we kind of explore more of that, maybe they're like these 4 kind of young characters are kind of like on the fringes of society. Maybe they ran away from home or something, because they don't have a home because it was destroyed by the Empire. They're kind of rebels themselves, not necessarily with the Alliance, but they're kind of like these rebellious kids, and like maybe they steal like an Imperial ship or something, and they kind of get lost in space. And then like the Jude Law's character, maybe he can be like a rebel officer or like an X-Wing pilot, and he kind of goes after them, because the Imperials are obviously after these 4 kids. So it can kind of be like a fun adventure story. Maybe they're after some kind of pirate treasure, kind of like in the Goonies, since that's what John Watts was inspired by to make this story. So yeah, I think it could be like a fun story. Then maybe like as the show goes on, it can kind of become more dark and more mature, and these characters can kind of meet up with Mando, maybe at the end of Mandalorian, Mandalorian season 3, kind of like what I was saying before, like to kind of open the door for like a bigger war going on between these different factions of Mandalorians. Maybe like the Empire is slowly but surely kind of building themselves up. Moff Gideon can kind of be involved in that as well. And then, these characters can kind of go from, being, people who like run away from the fight to kind of being brought into the fight, kind of like Mando was, where at first he was in it for himself. And then obviously Grogu came into his life. And then, he became like selfless. And then he eventually realized that, I can't be on the run. I really need to join this fight, get this kid with Luke Skywalker, kind of have that be the journey. And then now that we got those episodes with Book of Boba Fett, Mando and Grogu are kind of like a clan of two. And now with like Grief Karga and, all these other characters kind of bring him into this bigger fight with the Mandalorians and, with the Empire and everything. Now I'm hoping that season 3 is kind of like his arc to, finally, join in the fight, break free from, the brainwashing that he had from the Armorer and like join into the fight against the Imperials and, Moff Gideon's faction and everything. And, these skeleton crew characters can kind of be involved in all that. So I'm hoping that's kind of like the epic crossover event that we get that Kathleen Kennedy was hinting at later on. So we'll see. I know obviously all this is speculation. We're not really confirmed about anything at this point. We just know, the premise and like the inspiration. Maybe it won't be as tied in with these characters, but I'm hoping it will. So we'll see how that goes. All right, and now we move on to the Acolyte. And for this one, like kind of like what I was saying with Young Jedi Adventures, like this is going to be tied into the High Republic, which I'm pretty excited about. I don't know too much about the High Republic. I know it's going to be kind of more tied into like books and video games, and then like the future of Disney Star Wars is kind of tie into the High Republic a little bit more. But I know with this one, this is kind of be more about like the mysteries of the dark side and everything, which I think can be really cool. I read up on Leslie Headland, the creator of this show, how she kind of wanted to kind of get more into like how did the dark side form, after all the Sith were wiped out and the kind of the Jedi kind of rose to power, how did they infiltrate the Senate, how did Palpatine kind of shroud himself in mystery so that the Jedi wouldn't be aware of like what was going on. And now she's kind of explore those themes of like the Jedi are kind of like, above it all. Like she was saying that, they're going to be wearing like white and gold uniforms and like they're kind of like above the peasants and everything. They're kind of like in their high ivory tower, their high Jedi temple and everything, and they don't kind of really associate. So she kind of wanted to explore like why are they like this? Why are they kind of so blinded to the conflict that's going on? So I'm hoping that we kind of see more of like kind of like the Jedi history, this whole kind of battle that went on previously before the events of Phantom Menace, how the Sith were extinct for over a millennium, and kind of explore kind of like this arrogance that the Jedi have when it comes to that, like, oh, we're so high and mighty, like there's no way that a Sith can kind of be under our nose and kind of infiltrate the Senate. So yeah, I'm excited to see more of that. And for this one, I know this is going to be like more of like a female-centric show. I know we're getting Ahsoka, but she was kind of like a previously established character. Well, this one is like a character that's completely brand new. The main character is going to be played by Amanda Stenberg. I haven't seen a lot of her films or TV shows, but I know like I've seen her in like Hunger Games and a couple other movies here and there. I think she's a great actress, so I think she could be really cool to pull off this role, just be this kind of completely brand new character. Because we haven't really had like a female-centric like at least TV show. Like we've had like the movies and stuff, but at least for like the TV shows, we haven't really had it. And I think, it'd be good to get more like the female, like casual fans. Obviously there's plenty of female fans for Star Wars, but get kind of like those casual fans who aren't really in it. Like my wife, for example, is not really into Star Wars as much. Like she's seen some of the movies, but she's not super into it. But I think like this show could be really cool for her to see. Something that's like completely new, doesn't really have to do with the Skywalker saga, completely new character and, completely new storyline. So maybe this can kind of be her entry point into getting into Star Wars. So yeah, maybe it can actually be pretty good. I was reading more articles about like Leslie Headland, the director of the show, and she like kind of grew up playing Star Wars RPGs and kind of like writing Star Wars fan fiction and watching all the movies and when they were being released. So it's like, so obviously she's a very passionate fan of Star Wars. I was reading that for her writer's room, she kind of had a mixture of different writers where like she had writers who were like super into Star Wars, some who were kind of like more casual fans, and then some who were like didn't know Star Wars at all. So I think that could be interesting, having those different perspectives where like, people who haven't really seen Star Wars as much, but they, they care about characters and storylines and, stuff that works. So I think that can be interesting, having a good mix of that, just having her at the helm of everything. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. We haven't really seen too much. There's not really too much information out there. We've got the cast, and the cast looks incredible. I know Manny Jacinto's in there, and he's from The Good Place, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. So it'd be cool to see him in a Star Wars show. And then they have the actor from Squid Game, which I haven't seen, but obviously that's getting all this critical acclaim, and breaking records for viewership for Netflix. You have like Daphne Keane from Logan, which I loved. Carrie-Anne Moss from Matrix. So I think this could be a really good show. Yeah, and I guess speaking of which, I know they're gonna kind of lean into like the martial arts side of Star Wars. Like I was reading before, like Leslie was kind of reading into the inspirations for Star Wars, how George Lucas was inspired by all these different samurai films, especially like Akira Kurosawa. So I think that could be really cool. And then she was watching different movies and different samurai films to kind of get inspiration for the Acolyte. So, and then obviously there's going to be a lot of like Asian actors in the Acolyte. So I think that could be really cool as well to kind of bring that into it, because we've kind of seen kind of like hints of it in different movies and shows ever since Disney bought Lucasfilm. But it'd be kind of cool to see like more of like a show that's really kind of more influenced by martial arts, just because that was like one of the biggest inspirations for George Lucas when he was kind of creating Star Wars. It was Akira Kurosawa was like his mentor. So it'd be kind of cool to see a show that kind of like really leans into that. And I know this is also going to be like, kind of like an action mystery thriller. So it'd be kind of cool to see like more of like the lore side of Star Wars, kind of see like the underbelly of it all. Just because I know like we were supposed to get that with like Star Wars Underworld when George Lucas was developing that. We never got to see that. I know they kind of hinted at that with like Book of Boba Fett and a little bit with Mandalorian, but it'd be kind of cool to see like the seedy underbelly of like what's going on, where Amanda Stenberg's character and her mentor are kind of like, trying to solve these mysteries, all these crimes going on. Maybe we'll kind of get kind of like a Blade Runner type thriller where they're trying to figure out like how the Sith are kind of reforming, how the dark side is kind of reforming, kind of get more tie-ins like, the High Republic side, and then maybe, get some hints of like what's to come later on, maybe get some like Darth Plagueis tie-ins, Darth Bane, Sith origins, and whatnot. So yeah, I think this could be like a really cool show. And also Leslie Headland's going to be, drawing on aspects from the expanded universe. As we all know, when Disney bought Lucasfilm, they moving forward with Force Awakens, they didn't want to have the creators kind of be bogged down by all this lore from all these different like books and comics and TV shows that we got back in the day after Revenge of the Sith, and even before that, of all this kind of like post Return of the Jedi storylines and everything. So everything was all kind of marked as like legends. Nothing's really canon. Gratefully, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, especially Dave Filoni, has been kind of drawing aspects from the expanded universe and putting it into their shows and making it canon again. So I'm glad that Leslie's kind of doing that. So hoping that we get more like Darth Plagueis stuff with that. So we'll see maybe just like a little hints and stuff and actually make it more canon, just because he was mentioned in Revenge of the Sith. And then all of our fan theories before when Force Awakens was about to be released was like, is Rey holding Darth Plagueis' staff? Is that voiceover by Andy Serkis? Before we knew he was Snoke, is he going to be Darth Plagueis and all this stuff? So yeah, hopefully we'll get more of that in the Acolyte, but we'll see. From this point moving forward, like a lot of like the movies and shows that I'll be talking about like been kind of like TBA as far as release dates. So we'll see when it happens. Like I'm guessing it'll probably be like 2024 or something, because like they're in the middle of filming. So I'm guessing they'll probably wrap up by like early next year, and then be in post-production, and then maybe like early 2024 we'll get the show. So we'll see how it goes. Like I'm hoping that it's good, but yeah, we'll see. All right, now we move on to Lando, another show like I said before, we don't know any information on really. Like we just got that one announcement at the Disney Investors Day like years ago of like how this show is going to be made, and like how Justin Simeon, who directed Dear White People, is going to be executive producer and head writer on it. But then after that, we've heard nothing from it. So we'll see what happens with that. I've read that like Kathleen Kennedy's trying to get Donald Glover back in the role as Lando. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, I think it'd be great, because I kind of said in my last video, I thought Donald Glover was like the best part of Solo. He definitely played Lando like the way that we all kind of expected him to be. So hopefully, they can actually get him for the show. At this point, we don't know like how many episodes it's going to be, how many seasons it's going to be. Is it going to be a limited series? We really don't know. I'm really hoping that it kind of explores more of like who Lando was before we see him in Empire Strikes Back, even before we see him in Solo. Kind of we get more background of like who he is, maybe kind of give more context to L3, even though she wasn't really my favorite character, but kind of explain more of that relationship, kind of explain, why he became a gambler and all that. Or like a post Return of the Jedi show where it shows like, that transition, like what happened to Lando, like between after Return of the Jedi and then leading into his appearance in Rise of Skywalker. Because that was the question that we had when we saw, Force Awakens and Last Jedi is like, where's Lando? And then we finally got him in Rise of Skywalker because, unfortunately Carrie Fisher passed away. And they couldn't film any scenes with her, so obviously they killed off Han Solo, they killed off Luke Skywalker, so all we have left is Lando. And then we finally got Widget, the actor who played Widget Antilles, because he finally kind of got over his stubbornness about it, and finally showed up, a little cameo in Rise of Skywalker. So yeah, that'd be cool to see that, kind of see like what he was up to during that. And then I know there's like a Lando comic out there, so maybe there'll be adventures of like what happened in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, which would be really cool to see how he's kind of like joined into the fight, how he eventually becomes General Calrissian, see the different adventures and the different missions he's been on to kind of eventually get that position. Yeah, I think that could be cool. But yeah, other than that, we don't really have any information about that. We just had the announcement, the title, obviously Lando, and then Justin Simien being the creator of that. Hopefully it'll be good, and hopefully we'll kind of get more information on it as the years goes on, and we'll actually get a release date and some footage and some production photos and stuff. So yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. All right, and then we move on to A Droid Story, and kind of like what I was saying with Lando, like this is another title that was announced at the Disney Investors Day, and then we've heard nothing ever since then. But apparently it's supposed to be the epic journey of C-3PO and R2-D2 kind of leading this new character into the whole Star Wars story. I think it's just supposed to be a film, which totally makes sense. It's supposed to be kind of like the interconnectivity of like animation and visual effects. So I think that would be cool to see like a cool animated version of R2-D2 and C-3PO, since we kind of got that in, Clone Wars, the 2D versions of them, and like the Clone Wars micro series. So it'd be cool to see like more like a CG animated version of those characters, kind of like in a full feature. We got the Droid show, back in the 80s, the 2D version, which was a very cheesy show, but it was the 80s, what can they do? So maybe something that's kind of like in the vein of that, I have no idea who this new character is going to be. Are they going to be human? Are they going to be aliens? Are they going to be a droid? We don't know. It's just going to be a new character, maybe a new like Force user character, a new Jedi. Would be cool, maybe someone who joins the rebellion later on. That's another thing. We don't know what the timeline is going to be for this movie, where it takes place, so we really have no context. Or it could just be its own separate thing. So we'll see. Maybe it'll be like a post secret trilogy show or something. So now we can finally introduce a new character. Or yeah, maybe it can be something in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, just because there's that 19-year gap where we don't really know what the droids were doing at that time. I'm sure there's like plenty of books and comics and video games that explain it, but to have something that's actually canon would be really cool. And then maybe they'll pop up in season 4 of like The Mandalorian, or any of those shows moving forward, like Ahsoka if that gets a season 2, or Skeleton Crew if that gets a season 2. But yeah, like I said, Lando, we have no idea anything about this story. We just know the title and then like the premise, like the log line for it. So yeah, we'll see. All right, now we kind of get into the unspecified projects, the projects that have been announced, but we haven't really heard too much from it. We just kind of hear rumors and stuff about it, or the projects that like a director or writer's been announced for it, but we have no idea what the title or the premise or the storyline is going to be. So this will be an interesting section. So I'll just kind of talk about kind of like my theories of like what I hope to see with these different movies and TV shows, and yeah, we'll see what happens with them in the future. So the first one up is the Untitled Taika Waititi film. And I know this has been in development for, several years, and, Taika Waititi is obviously a very busy man with Marvel and, with all those kind of independent projects and everything. So we'll see whenever he gets to it. I was reading a report that, he's still trying to find the story and everything. He hasn't really started writing, the full script. There are like reports like this is going to come out like right after Rogue Squadron, but then, Rogue Squadron got pushed to the side of the Disney movie slate, which is kind of a shame because they had this big announcement at the, like I said before, with like the Disney Investors Day. They had Patty Jenkins, talking about, her grandfather being like a fighter pilot, how she wanted to create the best fighter pilot movie of like all time. And, we see her, in the cockpit of the X-Wing, and it just looked amazing. But then obviously that got shelved just because, the failure of Solo, they decided to just kind of put like a pause on the Disney Star Wars films and then kind of focus more on the TV shows and everything like that. So I mean, I guess there's like pros and cons, pros is that, they kind of learn from their mistakes. And, they're kind of really trying to focus on like, having like a writer's room, and which I'll get to a little bit later, of like, and actually having a plan, plan things out in advance and everything. So they just kind of had to learn the hard way, which is kind of unfortunate. And, the cons is that, all these different projects and movies and stuff that, we were really excited about, been canned. So we'll see what happens with the future of all these different movies and shows. But anyway, back to Taika Waititi. I know he was being interviewed, him and Kathleen Kennedy, and now they kind of want to move away from the Skywalker saga for obvious reasons. And, they kind of want to introduce like new characters, new planets, new storylines, which I think is like a really, really good, because I think, the problem with a lot of these like new Star Wars movies and shows that kind of tie into all these legacy characters is that, we as fans, we have this, obviously have a connection to these characters, and, when they're not done right, it's just, we get upset, and, or like, like I'm thinking about like, Obi-Wan, for example, where, you have this potential of like having this amazing, incredible Obi-Wan focused show with Darth Vader / Anakin as this main antagonist, but then you're just like, no, let's have it be about Reva and everything, have our little, Disney agenda and everything, kind of hijack the show. Which, it's like a Trojan horse where you're like the outside, it's going to be about Obi-Wan, but on the inside, it's really about Reva. And, instead of just like, let's just have our own, Reva show, let's just have her, hijack Obi-Wan show, and then, have it kind of be disguised as Obi-Wan show, but really it's about Reva, which, if you want to hear my thoughts about Obi-Wan, you can just go back to my last video. Or like, Book of Boba Fett, where you kind of hype him up as this, amazing character that we had in the episode of Mando season 2, where he's like this incredible, gunslinging gangster and whatnot, taking out Big Fortuna and sitting on the throne. But then you just kind of, he's got to be, redeemed in a way. He can't be too dark. He's got to be this honorable leader, and he's got to get back to his bacta tank and all this stuff. Or it's just like, oh, come on, you hyped him up to be this amazing character in that Mando season 2 episode, and then you just kind of make him, a wimp in a way. So yeah, I think, moving forward, I think Disney really just needs to take on new characters. Either take on new characters or have Dave Filoni shepherd all these legacy characters, which it looks like he's doing with Ahsoka and everything, just because I feel like out of all the creators at Disney, with the exception of Jon Favreau, he's the one who like really cares about the vision that George Lucas set out with Star Wars. He really wants to shepherd these characters in this storyline and, have it be consistent with what George set out with those first 6 movies and everything. And, he was obviously an apprentice to George Lucas when he was working at Lucasfilm and, working on the Clone Wars and, developing, that whole storyline and things like that. He helped co-create Ahsoka with George Lucas. So obviously he's going to treat Ahsoka with care with this live action series. But as far as like, these other shows, like Obi-Wan and Book of Boba Fett, they've just been kind of hit or miss, like Andor is different just because he's not really a legacy character. So they can kind of do what they want with him because we kind of know where he ends up. Because yeah, as far as these characters that we know and love, Disney just hasn't really been treating them with respect. And, you can kind of see with like Last Jedi with Mark Hamill, you can see all those videos of like how Mark Hamill warned us about The Last Jedi and like how obviously he's having like this terrible time with like how Rian Johnson treated Luke Skywalker in those movies. And, the proof is in the pudding, of how the fans reacted and became the most divisive Star Wars movie of all time. But anyway, as far as like Taika Waititi, I think moving away from the Skywalker saga and telling new stories is like a good call. I'm a big Taika Waititi fan. I wasn't the biggest fan of Thor: Love and Thunder, but I think just because, he kind of stayed in the Marvel sandbox a little bit too long. He did great with Thor Ragnarok. That's like my favorite Thor movie. But as far as, like staying within one kind of franchise, I think, was kind of like a detriment to him. So maybe, he kind of felt that pressure to, I got to give fans what they love from Thor Ragnarok and just double down and just do the same thing with Thor Love and Thunder and instead of like moving the story forward. If you want to see my thoughts on Thor Love and Thunder, you can go to my Marvel videos for that. But yeah, I think he's an incredible filmmaker. You know, he's like a 2-time, you know, Academy Award nominee, you know, and an Academy Award winner for, you know, for Jojo Rabbit. So obviously he can make a great movie. And then, you know, he directed the season finale of Mandalorian season 1, which was incredible. So if you just kind of give him the freedom to do, you know, his version of like a Star Wars movie and everything that's not kind of shackled by, you know, you got to have all these legacy characters, you got to involve the Skywalkers, you know, just have him have an incredible, you know, Taika Waititi Star Wars film. I think it can be good. So we'll see what happens with that. You know, I know it's still a little ways away, you know, because he's busy with all of his other projects. So we'll see what happens with that. Once we get production stills and, you know, like a first teaser and maybe like, you know, his own panel where he's actually talking about it and we have casting announcements, then I'll get a little bit more excited. But for now, it's kind of more theoretical. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, now we'll move on to the Rian Johnson trilogy. When he was making Last Jedi, you know, apparently, you know, Kathleen Kennedy was so happy with Rian Johnson and with the way that things were going with Last Jedi that she just gave him a whole trilogy, you know, before Last Jedi even came out, and then, like I said before, it became the most divisive Star Wars film of all time. After all that, you know, all the reviews went down, you know, they kind of put that to the side, but I guess technically it's still in development, but now, you know, Rian Johnson's, you know, busy with, you know, the Knives Out trilogy. The reports said that he's gonna like finish off the Knives Out series with like another film at least, and then start work on at least part 1 of the trilogy, just because I don't think he's going to do a whole trilogy. And yeah, speaking of which, Kathleen Kennedy has kind of announced that they're not going to announce trilogies, you know, way off in advance. They're just going to try to focus on just making one good movie, and then if it does well, then announce maybe like a second or third one. But anyway, yeah, with Rian, he's going to be writing and directing apparently part 1 after he's done with the Knives Out trilogy, which yeah, I think is like a good idea. I mean, I love Knives Out. Like the first one is like one of my favorite movies of all time. So even if he doesn't do Star Wars ever again, which, you know, I won't be sad about, and just decides to focus on, you know, Knives Out and then Knives Out Glass Onion, which I haven't seen yet. You know, I'm hoping to see that when it comes on Netflix later this month, but apparently it's been getting good reviews. If he just wants to stay in his Knives Out universe, like I would be totally fine with that. And maybe if he wants to, you know, do like the story and executive produce his whole Star Wars trilogy, or at least the first part of the series, then I'm totally fine with that. But yeah, we'll see. Like I keep saying before, we have no idea like what he's wanting to do, but kind of based on what Kathleen Kennedy said before, like she wants to kind of be outside the Skywalker saga, which, you know, I think is a good idea. It's kind of like what I was saying before with my problems with Last Jedi, like Ryan's treatment of Luke Skywalker and Mark Hamill. I think it's good if he kind of has a Star Wars movie that's kind of away from the Skywalker saga and kind of makes his own story, you know, because he can obviously make a great movie. You know, I haven't seen Brothers Bloom, but I've seen Brick, and I've seen Looper, and obviously Knives Out. And, you know, he can make like a great, you know, like sci-fi movie like Looper. I thought was pretty good. You know, the ending was like, I still, you know, it's kind of iffy on, but I think like the movie itself was like really, really good. So yeah, I think if he can make just like a really just good Star Wars self-contained movie, and if it leads into a trilogy, if it's good, then I'll be excited for it. But for now, we'll see what happens after he's done with his Knives Out series. All right, and now we move on to the Knights of the Old Republic trilogy. And kind of like what I said before, not sure if this will actually be a trilogy or if it'll just be like part 1 and then we'll see how it goes on. But yeah, apparently like this was announced a while ago. Yeah, there's a writer named Lieta Kalogridis. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But yeah, she was announced to write the script. She was kind of trying to do an adaptation of the video game Knights of the Old Republic. Obviously, we haven't really heard much about it, and we don't really know if it's actually in active development at this point, but I just wanted to bring it up here just in case it actually, you know, goes into production later on. But if they actually do decide to go with it, you know, I think it can be a great opportunity to kind of, you know, go back in time, talk about the Old Republic, because I know they're trying to do like the High Republic, but it'd be cool to see, you know, the Old Republic and see, you know, like the great, you know, Sith Armada, you know, see like armies of Sith and Jedi, you know, battling each other, have like the characters in the center kind of like going from like allegiance to allegiance and everything. So I think it'd be cool. Like, admittedly, I haven't played the video game. You know, a lot of my friends have, and they say it's incredible. You know, one of these days I'll try to get around and play it or watch like the cutscenes. But I know it's like a beloved series, and you know, a lot of people want to see that adaptation. You know, just me as like, you know, a fan of the films, it'd be cool to see more of the Old Republic, just because that's hinted at a lot in the prequels. And you know, it'd be really cool to see a bunch of Sith and a bunch of Jedi battling each other and everything. But again, we'll see. You know, all this is kind of speculation, and you know, it's obviously very it's unspecified at this moment. And, if they decide to do a trilogy, they have plenty of story to tell, because with video games, they just kind of go on and on and on. If this is like a live action TV show, I think that would be cool, but I think it'd be super expensive. It'd have to be like Game of Thrones type production value. So I think if they wanted to kind of adapt it into like a, 2.5 hour, 3 hour movie or something. And then if it does well, kind of continue on the storyline in part 2 and 3, I think that would be cool. But yeah, as for now, those are kind of like my brief thoughts on it. And, hopefully it actually gets made and we can kind of see how it goes. All right, and for this final section, I'll be talking about the directors and filmmakers that have kind of been announced for these different projects. None of the storylines have been confirmed or like, what era it's going to be, what the characters are going to be. They're just kind of been like the directors and the filmmakers have been announced to be developing a Star Wars project. So really, I really have no context of like where to draw this from, with the exception of their filmography, the kind of like storylines that they tell. So I'll kind of try to like match what the filmmaker is going to do for their different storylines and everything. So yeah, let's jump into it. So the first one that was announced was the Kevin Feige, Michael Waldron story. And then obviously, Kevin Feige is the president of Marvel Studios. And, he hasn't really made it a secret that he's a huge Star Wars fan. And, since he's an incredible filmmaker, Kathleen Kennedy wanted to bring him on into the Star Wars universe, develop a project for that. I was reading reports that, apparently it's not in active development at this point. But they did hire the writer, Michael Waldron, who wrote Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. He's like a head writer for Loki. He's going to be a writer for Secret Wars. So obviously he knows a lot about, like ensemble casts and, different universes and, adapting different storylines. So I think it could be really cool what they come up with that. Like kind of like what I was saying before, they're going to try to steer away from the Skywalker saga and have it be, its own separate universe. I think Michael Waldron was saying that it's going to be more like a self-contained story that won't really tie into the bigger universe or anything, be kind of like its own thing. So yeah, we'll see what happens with it. As far as like speculation on what the story might be, just based on their filmography and everything, like maybe it'll be like, an ensemble cast, maybe they'll have like a protagonist who's, maybe they're trying to like run away from like authority or something, just based on, from what I've seen, because I know like Kevin Feige hasn't, directed anything, like written or directed anything as far as I know, but like as far as like writing, Michael Waldron, he's with Loki and with Doctor Strange, they kind of have like protagonists who are kind of, kind of a little bit arrogant, they're kind of trying to run from the law, so maybe this will be kind of like a scoundrel type movie or something, maybe not like a bounty hunter movie, just because they've already had Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian, but maybe we'll get kind of some kind of scoundrel, maybe like a Dash Rendar kind of character or something within the Star Wars galaxy. Maybe he kind of gets tied into this kind of bigger war that's going on, if they want to go that angle, or if they just want to make this self-contained, maybe it'll just be kind of like a planet hopping movie or something. They have to kind of go from place to place to place to place. Maybe it'll be kind of like a scavenger hunt type story where they have to like get like different clues across the galaxy, or maybe they'll get into kind of like the Star Wars lore in a way. Maybe they'll kind of get into like, the Journal of the Wills, stuff like that. Maybe they'll get more of like lore type stories, and then like as the story goes on, maybe this character who's like doesn't believe in the Force or doesn't believe in like this higher power or something, gradually kind of gets more into the fight. Maybe he starts from being like a selfish character to like more like a selfless character. Maybe it'll be kind of like Big Trouble in Little China or something, because I know like, Thor Ragnarok was kind of based on that a little bit, so maybe it'll be something like that. But yeah, again, this is all kind of speculation just based on the filmography of the writer and everything. So yeah, we honestly don't know. I mean, currently right now it's not in active development, so we'll see what happens with that. I'm hoping that if it actually does kind of get more into active development, that we'll kind of see like a Marvel-esque type story in the Star Wars universe. So yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. All right, now we move on to the Damon Lindelof project. And for this one, I read reports that apparently there was like a 2-week writer's room of Damon Lindelof and a couple other writers from like different like movies and TV shows and series coming together to kind of plan out what the next movie's going to be. And like what I was saying before, like I'm just glad that they actually have, a writer's room, and that writers are actually together, collaborating on different ideas and everything, that they actually have a plan going forward. Again, I have no idea what the movie's going to be, but apparently the director of Miss Marvel is going to be like the director of this movie, and they're going to have these different writers kind of pop in, which I think could be cool. Like maybe it'll have like a like a female protagonist, maybe it'll be like like a female Padawan learner or something, and they they kind of discover their Jedi powers, and then they kind of go off on this adventure, or it could be like a male protagonist, like whatever they decide to do. But kind of based on stuff that Damon Lindelof has done. He's J.J. Abrams' boy. They worked on Lost together, so they'll probably have like kind of this mystery box storyline that kind of expands as the story goes on. I know Damon Lindelof's done like The Leftovers and Watchmen and all these different shows, which I haven't seen. I've heard great things about them, so I'm guessing that as the story goes on, this character, this protagonist will kind of learn more about the universe. Maybe this will kind of be like a recreation of like what they tried to do with Force Awakens, where you kind of have this character who's kind of like from this outer rim planet or something, who knows nothing about this greater war going on, and then like as the story goes on, they know more about the world, but about the universe, maybe more about the Star Wars lore. I also read a report that there could be characters who've appeared in the new trilogy who can be in this story, so that'd be cool. I mean, I don't think we're gonna see Daisy Ridley or John Boyega or Oscar Isaac, just because frustrations with Disney about how their characters were treated for obvious reasons, since they didn't have a plan of where they're gonna go with their characters. And obviously we're not gonna see Adam Driver because his character's dead, and all the legacy characters. So I mean, maybe we'll see like Jana or something, or Rose. I think that'd be cool, just because I didn't talk about this in my last video, but I know Kelly Marie Tran got a lot of hate for her role as Rose. And I don't hate her as an actress like at all. Like, I just think her character is just poorly written and just not really executed that well. And then obviously she was sidelined in Rise of Skywalker, so I know she was supposed to get like a bigger role in that movie, but she was supposed to have scenes with Carrie Fisher, but since unfortunately Carrie Fisher passed away, all those scenes had to be cut out, so her role was reduced significantly, and I think she only got like a minute of screen time, which is like really just a shame. So maybe this will be this movie will be about Rose. Maybe it'll be about, her relationship with her sister Paige, which we didn't really get to see much of in The Last Jedi. Maybe it'll be about that. But yeah, it'd be cool to see kind of like a redemption for Kelly Marie Tran and for the character of Rose, and kind of see her more in the Star Wars galaxy, since she's like one of the few characters and actresses who could come back. I mean, I don't really know her relationship with Disney, if she's wanting to come back after her treatment in Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, but I think that'd be cool if they decided to do a storyline with her, or with Jana, because she just popped up in Rise of Skywalker, and she had really interesting story elements that could have been explored more about the stormtroopers who were kind of taken out of their brainwashing and then kind of became kind of awakened in a way, and kind of joining the fight, joining the rebellion, to go against the First Order. So yeah, if they decide to do like a storyline with her, I think that could be cool, because I know she's going to be in the Whitney Houston movie that's kind of coming out later on. So hopefully that'll kind of put her name in the stratosphere and kind of give her more attention. So that could be cool if they decide to do that. But yeah, other than that, yeah, there's not really too much news. But yeah, I'm glad they have a writer's room. I'm glad they have a plan. And I'm glad they have the writers that they do and the directors that they do. So yeah, I think this could be really special if they actually stick the landing with it. And kind of like I was saying before, like as soon as we get more production stills and casting announcements and plot synopses and everything, I'd be even more excited. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. And the final announcement we have is the Shawn Levy film, which I'm actually really excited for. Like, obviously what I keep saying before of we have no idea what he's going to be doing for the story, or what era he's going to set it in. But I mean, I think it'd be cool. Obviously his filmography is great. Just the past couple projects he's done, he's going to be doing like Deadpool 3, he's going to be doing like the final episodes of Stranger Things, he's probably going to be doing like a Free Guy sequel. So I think this could be like just a really fun project just based on what he's done. Adam Project, he produced like Arrival. I think this can just be like a really just fun movie, with some, some dark elements, maybe some kind of twisted humor, a lot of action. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what he does with it. Obviously he's a big Star Wars fan and just an incredible filmmaker. I'm just thinking about episode 4 of Stranger Things that I've watched a couple months ago, where you laugh at one moment, then you cry another moment, then you're kind of in awe in another moment. So yeah, I'm really excited for it. Just based on his filmography and everything, I feel like if he's leaning more towards Ryan Reynolds films that he does, he's probably gonna have like a protagonist who's maybe like kind of goofy, kind of charming, kind of like a Han Solo type or something, and he kind of gets wrapped up in this adventure that's bigger than him, and he doesn't really know how to handle it. Maybe it'll kind of be like how Chris Pratt in Guardians of the Galaxy or something can kind of be like that, something more for like like an older audience or something, something like that's like fun, something that's action packed, something that doesn't take itself too seriously. It could have its like dark moments and stuff, dark scary moments. But yeah, I think whatever he has planned, I'm excited for. He's like an amazing filmmaker. Everything he's done. He's like the it guy in Hollywood right now as far as like the movies and TV shows that he's kind of producing and directing and everything. So yeah, why not add a Star Wars project onto your list? So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Again, this is all kind of speculation. I have no idea what's going to happen with it. It's definitely going to be a while because he still has to finish up Deadpool 3 and Stranger Things 5 and then Free Guy 2 if he ever does that. So it's probably going to be a while till we see it. But whenever he does decide to go in production for it, I'm going to be here for it. And maybe there'll be like a Ryan Reynolds cameo or something. That'll be fun seeing him in Star Wars since he's already in Deadpool with Marvel. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, and I'm excited for it. Yeah, so to sort of wrap all this up, I've been talking a lot longer than I thought I would. But yeah, overall, I think the future of Disney Star Wars is, looking bright. I'm glad that they have, a plan. I'm glad they have a writer's room. I'm glad they kind of, took a step back from the movies for a little bit and kind of reassessed what they're wanting to do with them. And, they're kind of moving forward like on a good note. I'm glad that, Dave Filoni, is kind of slowly but surely kind of increasing his power within Lucasfilm a little bit, being the showrunner of Ahsoka, and then having this kind of crossover event with Mando Season 3 and with Skeleton Crew. I'm excited to see all that. And then, as far as like all like the new movies and the new TV shows, I'm glad they're kind of, at least for the TV shows, are kind of centering them around like, the High Republic. They're kind of exploring that storyline and not having really dealing with like the legacy characters, just kind of doing something completely new, kind of giving these writers, directors like creative freedom of like what they want to do. So I'm excited to see what they decide to do with that. I'm glad that they have like different audiences. They have like more like adult audiences, they have like teenage audiences, they have like little kid audiences, kind of bring in all these kind of like ages of Star Wars fans and kind of bring this whole new generation of Star Wars fans up. So yeah, I think it'd be really cool. I'm glad that they're having like these filmmakers who are not only Star Wars fans but are also incredible filmmakers just in general when it comes to like writing, directing, producing. So yeah, I think it'd be really good. I'm not sure how long Kathleen Kennedy is going to stay at Lucasfilm, but as far as now, I think she really set the table for where it could go. If she does decide to go off and retire and maybe go on another studio, then at least she kind of left Lucasfilm like in a good place. With like Bob Iger back as CEO, like maybe he'll kind of like shepherd that a little bit more and hopefully find a successor after he goes off, and then like they can kind of watch over Lucasfilm and kind of have it stick to what George Lucas originally intended when he sold it off to Disney, to kind of like make the stories hopeful, make the stories inspiring, and have everything kind of be consistent and kind of treat the characters with respect, because that's what we as fans really just want to see. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with it, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. If you got to the end, I know I talked way more than I thought I was going to, but yeah, I'm just just excited about the future of Star Wars and where it could end up. And I also just want to let you know that this is probably going to be my last discussion video, at least for a while. I just really just kind of wanted to start this series, just kind of give my thoughts of like the film industry and things that I'm happy with, things I'm not happy with, when it comes to like Marvel and Disney. So maybe like in the new year or later on, maybe I'll have like more thoughts to say, but really I just wanted to kind of talk about like Marvel and Star Wars and like my thoughts on those. So yeah, if you have been enjoying these videos, then I'm glad. If you ever want to see like more of these in the future, just leave a comment below of like what movies or series or franchise you want me to take on, and I'll see what I can do with that. But yeah, in the meantime, give this video a like and subscribe for more videos, and may the Force be with you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.